Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. Live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Friday, January 26th. 2018, Duane Rollins on the line with myself, Kevin Laramee, joining us today live from Ottawa, the brand new general manager of the Ottawa Fury, Julian De Guzman. Julian, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Good morning, Julian. Let's start there. Of course, last year you were the interim head coach of the Fury for a while. Second half of the season, you made the decision to move to the front office full time this year. Tell us why you made that decision. What the thinking behind that was.
Getting the opportunity to get the feel of what it's like to be a staff member, coach, general manager. I started as the assistant under Paul for both roles with the Fury beginning of 2017. It was a tough transition, just leaving the playing side and working as a coach and seeing the ins and outs. Learned loads of ways to go about it and how it's done when you're doing both roles as a coach and GM. And then when it happened in August, I became the head coach and also head general manager for the rest of the season. That's when it opened my eyes and I said, wow, this is actually it's more than what I expected it to be when you've taken two major responsibilities to run an entire team. So toward the end of 2017, I really thought it out, and I think if you want anything, run successfully and efficiently, it's important that you kind of just minimize the task, especially when it's a major role such as a head coach and general manager. So that's when I came to the decision to do split roles. Then it was the decision now, which one do I want to do? Do I want to be the head coach full time, or do I want to be the head general manager full time? And it was a process of interviews, coaches throughout Canada, coaches throughout the U.S. and as well as Europe, and I even had a chance to speak to a few general managers throughout the league and the MLS. And then once I met Nicola and I saw his profile and being able to see his philosophy and ideas, it matched my views and visions of the way I feel football should be run for any club. And it was an easy decision to say, you know what, this is actually the perfect profile I would want for a head coach if I was to have control of a team. And then that's when the decision of me, stepping into the general manager role came about. So having Nicola as a head coach, it just made sense that we both see, eye to eye based on how we would want a successful team to compete in the USL. And it's a guy who's hasn't just had experience in the USL, but he's had a huge success, coaching in Spain, coaching in Portugal, coached against the likes of Cristiano, coached against the likes of Messi in Spain, and then he also had huge mentors who worked with Jose Mourinho. So having someone with their UEFA Pro license in Canada, I think this is a massive upgrade to what we would want the country to have in the future of soccer in Canada. And these are the type of coaches you would want involved in the growth and development of the game in this country.
Under Paul Dalglish, the Fury were very direct. I think it's probably fair to say, and I wonder stylistically whether there's a move away from that kind of philosophy now, and you're looking to do something differently. What will we see under Nicola?
Yeah, I think he's made a name for himself in the USL, especially after last season. He's coached under Marc Dos Santos. he was able to learn a lot from Mark, and they have a lot of similarities as well. But I mean, doesn't mean they're the exact same type of person. Mark is very defensive, likes to have a mean block that's very impossible to penetrate, but then likes to break on the counters. And Mark has been successful with that for many years, and he's won the NSL like that. I played under him like that. So he brought success to Ottawa. Playing that style. Nicola now takes the role as a head coach for the Swope Park, brings them back to the finals again, but this time with a different type of football. You can see it's more attractive, it's exciting, and it's art when you watch it, and that's the type of football I've enjoyed the most in my career playing in Spain. Is that possession based football? But I mean, it's good to watch, but I mean, it's very particular and is very detailed on how these coaches and the philosophies they bring to that. So players that we've introduced into this season fit that type of football, and this is the exact time to bring a guy in this situation where the fans want to see good football, but we also want to see success follow with that. So you will see a lot of possession-based football. This is what we want this year. But also, we want to see results too, and I think it's the perfect situation to introduce it to Ottawa.
Over the last few weeks, Julian, some of the signings you made created a buzz in Ottawa. And having I know you don't see the video feed, but I have a nice Bytown Boys on my wall here, a nice scarf. And a lot of my friends in Ottawa have been texting me happy, be like, man, we got Tissot. Man, we got Sandin back. We got a lot of players that are important to us. Canadian content, but more than that, known players, known commodity, and players that get excited with the potential of attacking soccer. Is this a bit a return to what made the Fury popular in the market a few years ago? Because it feels like it.
Yeah, it's really pleasing to see the likes of Nana Adekora, Maxime Tissot, Coupeau, these guys have they believe in what the Fury has here. They want to be a part of this, and I don't want to just sign Canadians because they hold a Canadian passport. I speak to these guys. I speak to a lot of players and even their agents, and just to get a feel of what could they bring to Ottawa. How can they make a difference, and why do they want to come here? So it's just not a time for. We don't have time for players just to come here to go through the motions and to try it out. We want to have guys who are going to make a difference. And with those type of names I just mentioned, these are the guys who will make a difference for the game. They've won trophies already. In the NSL, they've played in the MLS already on the top level, and they also played internationally for their country. So this type of experience that we bring and inject into Ottawa is the way you would want to complete that picture to succeed in the USL, and then the buzz is great, but you obviously want something to back that buzz, and these are the type of guys you want. Colin Falvey now, who's had success in Ottawa, he wants to be back here, and he still wants his team to succeed, and this is a winner and a leader that the team has been missing for a very long time. So we're blessed to have him. Kevin Oliveira, this is a
young striker.
A remarkable talent that we've had to look at at Swope Park. Benfica, he's done well at Benfica, B team under Nicola, and then now he makes a name for himself at Swope Park. This is the guy that he signed a contract to Sporting Kansas. Fortunately for us, he was released by Atlanta once he was traded, and that was an opportunity for us to bring young talent like that. So this is the culture that I'm doing my best and I believe in, and I want to create in Ottawa, and I believe this is a way to create the reference of Canada soccer in Ottawa.
Often we talk about the influence of a new general manager or technical director when he takes over a club. And we have an example here, literally concrete example. Last week we had Nana Adekora on the show, Julian, talking about he didn't really have any plans to coming back to Canada, and quite honestly, didn't really want to. But he had a conversation with you, and that changed everything. Without divulging everything that happened in that conversation, I'm wondering what type of conversation can you have to convince a player of that stature to join you, Julian?
It's more than just a conversation. I know Nana very well. I played with them. These guys I've brought back. Guys like Nana, Vaccine Propos. So I've worked with these guys. I've seen their work ethic. I've proven, or try to lead that way in that level of professionalism, not just for them, but for a lot of Canadians I've worked with in the national team or in soccer in Canada. So I've done my best to, as a player, to show them the standard of what it should be for every Canadian if they want to make it and if they're serious about this game in this country. So now I'm in this position where I open myself up to them and I say, listen, it's going to be no different than the way that it was on the field for me. This is the same thing this is the same thing I expect of a general manager. This is the level of professionalism I would want for every Canadian club in the country, and these are the type of individuals that could make a difference. So the conversation, I'm a guy that likes to use his actions to prove and to prove a point, but knowing then that I trust what their abilities are and what they could do. They feel the exact same way about me just through our experience and relationships we've had during my playing career. So it goes a long way, based on a 30 minute conversation with the player. But I think it's a bit more than just that when and I've actually worked with these guys and suffered with these guys wearing the national team jersey.
Julie, this is a bit of a philosophical question. You mentioned about the importance of creating an environment where these Canadian players come in and they're not just being complacent, where they're fighting for their spots, where they're earning their spots there. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on quotas, on having a quota requirement for a certain amount of Canadian players there, whether you think that is beneficial or whether there should just be a free-for-all and, it may be a Canadian team and you want to ideally have them there, but whether they should just have no requirements whatsoever.
Yeah, I've been asked many times if I was to ever, before this ever happened, me being the GM, if I was to ever have this role, it would be great that you just bring in Canadians and we could create a Canadian team. And first and foremost, representing a Canadian team, you want to win. I want to be successful. I want this team to make a difference. And whether it was for the national team, me playing for them, or playing for TFC, or playing for Ottawa. It's always an honor as a Canadian to play for a Canadian team or your national team, but you want to win. And I've seen it happen too many times where, the players are just complacent, they're too comfortable, and that pressure and that standard was never set from the get-go. In this position today, allowing now, Canadians, good Canadians, to come in and make a difference. I don't think it should ever be the case where, because they have a passport, and this is why they're here, and I think it's something where you see in the MLS and the USL, there are a lot of good Americans, but are they good enough to make that difference, So there's obviously a huge advantage now in the USL. You see up to 84 Canadians playing in the USL because of that. If that was the case in the MLS, I'm sure you'd see a lot more Canadians involved in the MLS as well, but that's not the case. So I think there's a good amount of talent out there that are Canadians that deserve a chance, that need to be in good environments, and we have an opportunity as a Canadian club to allow that. If I get a player that's better than any Canadian, of course I'm gonna take the better player. Whether he's American, whether he's a foreigner, that's what I'm looking at first. I'm looking at quality. Then, obviously the chance to bring a Canadian that type of quality or even better, I'm willing to do that as well. And Nana, Maxime, Crepeau, Tissot, these are not your average Canadians you're bringing in. So I'm definitely looking at above average type of players that are Canadian, and I think that's the standard I would set at any Canadian club that decides to be at the level of professional leagues, whether it's a USL, MLS, or in the future CPL. It's very important we set that, and I think that's a trend that needs to be carried out throughout the nation.
I'd be remiss, Julian, when I have a former national team player on the line, to not ask about the recent changes with the national team. Just what are your thoughts with John Herdman coming over, and whether you think someone who's coming from the women's game will be able to immediately get the ear of players that are playing at the highest levels in some cases?
Yeah, it's interesting. You get a lot of mixed feelings based on this. First time ever you hear a women's national team coach take over the men's national team, and we're talking about Canada today. This is a country that's certainly behind, in many areas for the game of soccer, and I think if you look at it, it's important that we get somebody who understands the culture. We get somebody who understands what needs to be improved from the development, from the grassroots and up. John Herdman has proven himself, and has definitely restructured the women's side successfully. And I could only imagine him doing the same thing for the men's side. Creating a future for the game. This is definitely a long-term project, with the idea of bringing John Herdman involved in the program. This is not just a one-cycle thing, just to push a big-name coach to try to make a World Cup. This is reality with what state we're in right now. And I think the idea of having him on board, now we're finally looking at in a realistic manner based on long-term goals. And I think this is what we need as an organization, as a federation. And if we were in the middle of creating a league, it just makes sense that you have someone with a proper business plan. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what he could do, and I strongly believe that he will make a difference on a positive side. So I have a lot of hope, and as a Canadian myself, I'm going to always be a big believer for the game in Canada on the good side.
All right, we're going to see playoff soccer in Ottawa this year.
You better book your tickets. I mean, that first playoff game is going to be at home, so this is what we're working towards too. And the 2-year drought has been pretty heavy for the fans, for the city, for Canadian fans that follow the Fury, and we want to be a playoff team with the likes of what we set in 2015. This is the type of image that we want to continue to follow for the Fury.
All right, one of Canada's greatest ever players, Julian De Guzman. Thanks so much for your time today, and good luck this season.
Thank you so much, guys.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.
And we're back on Soccer Today. Duane Rollins on the line with myself, Kevin Laramee. Well, that was fun. Julian's always a pleasure to talk to Julian, no matter what his job description is at the time we talk to him. Coach, player, general manager. It's always enlightening. And you know what I like about Julian is he doesn't try sometimes to find another way to put things. He says it like he thinks it, and that's refreshing. And I think that his stint as the interim head coach and before as an assistant really made the groundwork for his position as general manager, Duane, because he spent more than a year. He played in this league. He spent a year on the sideline. He got a chance to watch the players, to analyze the players, and to sign the one he wants. And we're seeing this, and people in Ottawa are excited.
I think that it shows some insight that he was able to realize, I believe, that maybe his best role as general manager. Julian's a guy that's always, even through his playing career, sort of turned his attention to some business ventures out there. So, he was investing his money early on, kind of a business-minded guy, and GM sort of had more of that kind of angle going than the manager role. And he put his time in at the manager side, but I think he recognized that a more experienced manager might be what drives this club over the finish line, where he can sort of shape it and use his personality and his sort of influence amongst the Canadian players. And there's no doubt, as we talked to Nana last week, that he has a great deal of influence amongst Canadian players, so he can bring the best back. I think that if you're a pure Canadian fan that maybe doesn't have a club team per se in this country, but or maybe just sort of a loose affiliation with a club team, I think the Fury is going to be a team you're going to watch carefully this year, because they have really cranked up that Canadian content and are sort of embracing that, and they're pretty exciting looking so far. I think that it looks like, I don't know whether they're going to be quite as good as they were when they went to the Soccer Bowl final. That was a great stretch, but I do think that they have a potential to.
What's that? What league is this? Like Soccer Bowl and the Nassau? Oh yeah, the Nassau and the Nassau.
Yeah, well, their USL is winning this fight. There's no doubt about that. But to get back to the USL Championship would be something that would be quite remarkable. But I think the Fury fans would be satisfied with some more improvements and a playoff thing. But that playoff question at the end, I think that's the key. They got to get top 8 this year.
Yeah, and good football.
And I think that's cool.
Let's not forget, the one thing that's been difficult in Ottawa the last 2 years is not necessarily just the drought of the playoff and the fact that they weren't in the playoff and weren't challenging for a title, but I think it is as well the lack of fun watching the team, the lack of positive soccer. I know it's maybe exaggerating, but that's what it was. That's what I was told, at least. I'm not watching every single game and I'm there in Ottawa in every single game, but friends who are told me sometimes it was difficult to keep paying attention in the 88th minute.
Yeah, well, we got yelled at by some Fury fans last year for not being harder on Paul Dalglish when we interviewed him, right? So there was a lot of anger about his style and his
we literally
choices,
got yelled
tactically.
at, like literally all caps. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, so alas. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. But no, I do think stylistically there is a move towards something that's a little prettier, and it's always a bit of a dilemma here when you're at a minor league level, like how much of your philosophy in building the team is around being entertaining, because let's face it, you got to sell tickets and you got to engage your community if you're not at the very top, right? You're not just going to automatically get people coming into your stadium, especially if you're playing boring. Now, it's one thing if you're playing boring and winning. The Indy 11 kind of are that. They're very direct and they have been successful using that, and I think that their fans just like the fact that they win. But it's quite another thing to play boring soccer and lose, which is what the Fury were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously,
like Route 1, when you're not getting on the actual route, is quite boring.
Well, yeah, that's TFC 2010, right? I mean, it's dire, to say the least. But as I said, I'm excited to watch the Fury this year. Hopefully, like the last couple of years, bluntly, I mean, I will start any season out watching all the games I can. FC Edmonton, rest in peace. Hopefully they're back in a year. I used to always start to watch those games. I'd watch Fury games. I'd watch every game. But then the Furies would always just drop off the last couple of years because they weren't winning and they weren't entertaining. So it was hard for me to justify my time to watch them, in a great amount, especially since the fans didn't even seem that interested in talking to them. But
we see a
great
difference.
To work with,
there's a difference now. If you're just looking at by reaction of fan, excitement of fans, and numbers that show we do about Ottawa do right now compared to last year, there's a big difference. People are excited. People want to know more. People want to know what's going on now, and they wanted to forget about the last few years.
There you go. Exciting times there. And it's always fun when a team's kind of emerging from a shadow. It sort of adds a little element. Okay, we're ready to get excited again. Like we saw it over the last 3 years with TFC from the dark days prior to that.
Montreal this year.
It was exciting during that build-up. The Impact are in a very transitional stage right now, and I think that there's something interesting and exciting about that. The Whitecaps, on the other hand, are kind of just...
The Whitecaps are still in the dark,
Yeah, they're kind of in the doldrums. They're just treading water, and that doesn't make them interesting. So sorry, Vancouver fans, but that's sort of how they're seen right now. They're just kind of, the Whitecaps are going to be okay. Yeah, they're just okay though, right? And it's better to be going up or coming down, but that sort of treading water that doesn't really work. But at any rate, we'll make one.
Oh, sorry, Duane. I was going to say we have a few bit of news to talk about, and of course, my email just buzzed about 5-6 minutes ago. And what I've been telling you all week by text, what's happening. Major major announcement Monday in Miami by Major League Soccer, David Beckham and partners. Guess what, Duane? I have to eat my hat because MLS in Miami is happening after all.
Wow. Yeah, 4 years later. Just looking at this email as we speak now. Is there going to be a teleconference or is it just live? Anyone want to send me to Miami on Monday? Go fund me. Just EMT me the money.
Patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. Get SPN at the press conference on Monday night.
Yeah, there you go. Just give us a one-time donation of
$5,000.
Go down. Yeah, that'll do it. Take our talents to South Beach. We'll do the show live from South Beach.
We'll do it on the beach if you want. No problem.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Look, I think we've talked. There's a lot of challenges to Miami, but obviously they're going to go in with they're going to have a great advantage in the fact that it's Miami and David Beckham's involved. And we can look down our nose at Becks and sort of make fun of the celebrity. And there is something very surface about David Beckham, very shallow about David Beckham and his sort of lifestyle. But he has star power, and Miami is a star power kind of town. And you know that when it comes to big name DPs, they're going to think MLS is basically New York, Miami, LA is what they're going to think of it.
Well, what I'm wondering is what color are the kits going to be? Because if you follow some news, there was a jersey of the NBA that came out this week, the Miami Heat, but a Miami Vice inspired kit with neon pink, neon baby blue, and white. It was the most beautiful thing I've seen all week. And if Miami goes, you know what? Embrace it, right? You have to embrace your identity, even if you don't think that's what we're talking about Las Vegas. Well, Miami, call yourself the Vice. You're Miami Vice, you're blue, you're pink, and you're awesome.
We don't have a pink kit in the league, so I don't see anything wrong with it. That would mean there's pink kits around the world, various places. Was it Palmero has the pink kit, I think, off the top of my head, in Italy? So, yeah.
Yes, Palermo. Yeah,
so exactly. So we're in 2018. We could have a pink kit. Let's have a pink kit in Miami. I'm going to go
pink,
with
teal, and white, and you have Don Johnson in the beginning of the season there with what's his face? The guy from Cheech and Chong there. That was Don Johnson's. You get Nash Bridges. Miami. You get Miami Vice. It works. I am exaggerating here, but it's surprising. It's finally happening, and we'll follow this on Monday. But there will be a major announcement. Last time we had an email like this, it was about Nashville, and guess what? It was to say that they have an MLS team. So Monday, MLS in Miami is for real. Other few news that were officialized over the last few hours. Kyle Larin officially a Besiktas player after a transfer of $1.8 million that Kyle has to pay himself. I have a feeling he's going to be paid a lot of money by Besiktas to help that transfer. So it's basically like Neymar, just 200% less.
Yeah, I have a lower number I was given, but who knows about that stuff? It doesn't really matter. The point is,
it depends if it's in which currency, right? Is it in euros or is it in Canadian or American?
I heard 850,000 euros is what I heard, but
that's 1.6 Canadian for you, so it's not too far.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Look, the important thing this is done, and we're never gonna. The Orlando fans are quite bitter about this. They feel that he's breaching his contract. Other people closer to Lawrence camp feel just as equally strongly that he didn't have a contract to breach. And I think it's kind of from an outside, like popcorn observer kind of perspective, I wish they would have taken this to arbitration because I would love these MLS contracts to be challenged because I truly believe they'd be shot down. But that's precisely why MLS is not going to allow that to happen. As a pro-labor guy, I'd really like them to. I hope in the next CBA, the players' union really goes hard to try and get rid of the unilateral club options. I mean, there's nothing wrong with options as long as they're negotiated properly. And what the feeling is amongst MLS players is that they aren't fairly negotiated. They don't have a choice but to sign them. If they want to sign any contract, they have to sign one that has unilateral club options on them, which isn't negotiated in good faith. That's the position of the players. So I really hope that they went after free agency the last time. That was their big hill that they were dying on. I hope that the hill they die on this time is unilateral club options, because we're only going to have more issues like this moving forward. Now that Lauren has pushed, Camilla did it first, Lauren's done it next. It's only a matter of time until another player that wants to move is going to do this again when they feel like they're being held hostage. And, they're being forced to be the bad guy amongst people that used to be their fans. And that's always how fans are going to view it, as they're being betrayed. But if you look at it from a player's rights perspective, if they feel that they did not have any choice but to sign a contract that basically held them as indentured servants, for well-paid ones, I guess. So I shouldn't say that. I was too flippant. But as being held hostage to the contract that they feel that they weren't negotiated in good faith, then that's something to.
Well, not just that. One thing that I've heard on my social media, especially on my Facebook, Facebook can be sometimes the best of places and the worst of places at the exact same moment. Commentaries like, "Oh, people who sign a contract and don't hold it to the letter of the contract and then move on and do something else. I don't have time. I don't have respect for that." Like, there's a teeny waiting circumstances. There's other thing than just a damn contract. There's promises, there's intention, and sometimes there's agreement, or at least kind of like an agreement. Say, okay, sign this contract and we'll work for you for your next one. We'll let you go at this time. We'll do this. We'll do that. And promises that are not kept sometimes does qualify as a breach of contract. But it's all in the past anyway. So let's look at this the same way we look at Balou to Barcelona. Let's forget the contract dispute and the transfer here. What happened is Orlando City sold maybe their best ever player since their history of a club to a great club in Europe. It's a positive aspect. Let's forget about, oh, he's not here anymore. It's positive. It's like Balou signing for Barcelona. Did you read all the newspaper this week? Yeah, we know it's Barcelona B, but apparently a lot of editors just dropped the B in the headlines. Nobody knows. It's Montreal Impact's product, Balou Tabla, signed for FC Barcelona. Across the world, you saw those headlines over the last few days. And it's the same for Orlando. You should have those headlines. You should be happy. You should cherish that moment. And you should cherish those dollars, because those dollars are going to help you be even better in the next few years. So, you know what, Orlando fans? By the way, thank you to Orlando fans. You see this nice little new scarf in the studio, Orlando City scarf. Thank you, Garrett, very much for your gift. And if you want to be like Garrett, awesome. Yes, give us some swag. Email me, sportspodcastingnetwork@gmail.com, or on social media. If you want to donate to the studio so you feel a little part of yourself is with us all the time, just like Garrett and just like the 127 Montreal and the Bytown Boys of Ottawa. But yeah, it's a positive signing. It's a positive sign as well that young players are sold out of MLS for money, and because they want to play in Europe and graduate. It's, we're becoming Ligue 1 slowly.
Well, that's not a bad thing to aspire to. I think Ligue 1 would be realistically the highest ceiling MLS could ever evolve to, in my mind.
We're not that far.
There's nothing wrong with that.
We're not that far, though.
Yeah.
Like, look at the stadiums, look at the fans, look at the clubs, we're not far off from, 2022 was a joke a long time ago. Well, if you consider Ligue 1 in top 5, top 6, we're not that far. It might not be far off after all.
Well, catch Mexico first. But quickly on what you were saying, look, I know I want to be careful what I'm saying to Orlando fans. I'm not judging them for being a little bit salty today, because I think, you put yourself in their shoes, you probably would be too. But if you take a step back and take the partisanship out of it, I think you can understand why the players find these contracts egregious and why they're fighting for them. We're talking about, Balou right now, and from a Canadian perspective, we're all a little bit salty about the fact that he's probably going to represent the Ivory Coast. I mean, I put a tweet out yesterday that got a lot of positive response, and it doesn't really matter. Obviously we as Canadians want him to represent Canada, but it doesn't really matter from a positivity standpoint whether he does or not, because what matters is he was produced here. He was developed in Canada, and that speaks well for the Canadian development system to a certain point anyway, that they can produce a player like that, which means that in the future, Barcelona might be willing to come back and look here again. And as you said, no one's talking about Barcelona B. They're just talking about Barcelona, which is fair because he did sign for Barcelona. Like, if he excels at Barcelona B, he will play for Barcelona. He has a much greater chance to play for Barcelona than any other Canadian has ever had ever. So there you go. Maybe Julian might have been the only other Canadian that would have any chance whatsoever to have played there because he excelled in La Liga back in the day. But even then, that was highly unlikely. So this is the closest a Canadian developed player anyways ever come to Barcelona.
It's too bad we were a little bit short on time. I would have loved to ask Julian what he thinks about the situation like a Balou Tabla signing for FC Barcelona. Because it's official. We've seen the videos. We've seen it. And I want to take a second, Duane, and put things in perspective. And I've had the pleasure of talking and rubbing shoulders a few times with Balou over the past 4 years. Back in the FC Montreal days, back when only 3-4 of us, and I was just going a few times a year, but a few of us were going on a day-to-day basis, like Tristan D'Amour. By the way, Tristan, if you're listening, hello. You can listen to his Scrum podcast, by the way. It's a great podcast about sports journalism by himself and a CTV weatherman, Julian McKenzie. One thing, though, when you look at the Balou situation, Balou, Duane, has always been there, for me at least. I don't know for other journalists, and not necessarily my place to say, but whenever I went with a microphone to Balou, good times, bad times, on or off the record, he always gave me what he thought was justified. And that's going back 4 years ago when he was one of the shyest players I've ever seen. Balou Tabla is a shy player. He's not a loud mouth on the pitch or even just as a person. He's very reserved and not necessarily introvert, but he's a reserved and intelligent and nice and emotional in a reserved way. And I've always enjoyed my interactions with Balou. I wish Balou all the best in his endeavors. I wish Balou to choose Canada. Yes, I wish Balou to come on the show whenever he wants, and I send him that invite. But I want everyone in Montreal and in Canada right now to not look at this negatively. Because it's not. And you could easily be, he's gone. He's not going to play for my team anymore. We loved you, and now you're leaving. No, he's not leaving. He got a promotion. No matter how high you think Major League Soccer is, guess what? Barcelona's higher. Even Barcelona B. Just the images of Balou yesterday at Camp Nou, watching the game for his first time and the smile he had on his face. Who are we to tell this kid that he's not allowed to dream? And in life, Duane, you have to listen to your dream, because there may be dreams, but it's one of the only real things we have.
Yeah, fair enough. The only thing I'd say to him about Canada versus Ivory Coast is that, ironically, he might have a better chance to play in a World Cup for Canada because of the 26 bid. Ivory Coast is no guarantee to qualify, and he's no guarantee to make it. So that's the only thing I'd say to him. But if he's at Barcelona, he's going to get looked at by the Ivory Coast.
Yeah, but we do hope the best for Balou Tabla, and it's on him. The name of the Montreal Impact in Major League Soccer did resonate all week long across the world of soccer. But now it's on Balou's shoulder to break the first team.
Speaking of the world and resonating, we got to take a break now, for a longer break now, a stop break now till Monday for Soccer Today, and set up Five Rings, which is going in a little bit later. So, Kevin, why do you say goodbye to the show, and we'll get preparing for a Five Ring show in about 45 minutes or so.
Yep, let's say around 11:30, and until then, for our Five Ring listeners, we'll be back soon, and for our Soccer Today listeners, we'll be back Monday with more soccer, of course. And you can always follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute, and myself at Kev Laramee. You like the show, you like the guests we have, you like the investments that we did production value wise, you like the audio, you like the video, well, let us know. Tweet us, email us, and as well, support us. Help us do more by going to patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. Help us be one of the last standing independent soccer voice out there. And as always, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.